June wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the mining outpost's security feeds. It was his third year working security on this remote rock, far from Earth. The job was simple and paid well, perfect for a former Special Forces soldier who had seen enough fighting to last a lifetime. The alarm blared suddenly, breaking the quiet morning routine. Unidentified ships approaching, the computer announced in its flat voice. June's body tensed, muscle memory from years of combat kicking in. He watched the screens as 3 massive ships entered orbit. They were unlike any human vessels he had ever seen. Their hulls were dark purple with strange markings that glowed green. "Wake everyone up," June ordered the computer, "but no evacuation yet. Let's see what they want." 20 minutes later, the outpost's small crew of 12 miners gathered in the command center, faces pale with worry. "Are they aliens?" asked Kang, the youngest miner. "Real aliens." Before June could answer, the communication system activated by itself. A face appeared on the main screen. It looked almost like a lizard standing upright, with purple scales and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. "Human mining settlement," the alien said in perfect but oddly accented English. "This territory now belongs to the Cradle Empire. Your resources are claimed in the name of Emperor Varrock. Surrender your facility or face destruction." June stepped forward. "I am June, head of security. We didn't know this area was claimed. We can discuss." The alien cut him off with a harsh laugh. "Discuss? The Cradle Empire does not discuss. We take. You have 1 hour to prepare for our arrival." The screen went dark. "What do we do?" Kang asked, voice shaking. June's mind worked quickly. "Send an emergency signal to Earth. Then everyone get to the emergency bunker. I'll meet with them." "Alone?" asked Subin, the outpost's doctor. "That's suicide." "They're coming whether we like it or not," June said calmly. "Better to have 1 person at risk than 12. I've handled worse." 50 minutes later, June stood alone at the landing pad. He wore his standard security uniform, with no weapons. A small shuttle broke through the clouds and landed with a hiss of steam. The door opened, and 5 tall Cradle soldiers marched out. Their bodies were covered in armor that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Behind them walked a smaller Cradle in elaborate robes. "I am Imperial Envoy Tazu," the robed Cradle announced. His voice was high and scratchy. "Where are the others?" "Safe," June said simply. "I'm authorized to speak for the outpost." Tazu circled June, studying him with obvious disgust. "This is what humans send to greet the Empire. 1 small, soft-skinned creature." June didn't react to the insult. "We're a peaceful mining operation. We have no quarrel with your empire. Perhaps we can work out an arrangement that benefits both." The Cradle Envoy hissed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. The Empire has claimed this system and all its resources." "What about the people?" June asked. "They will serve the Empire or die. Their choice." Tazu turned to his guards. "Take this one to the mothership. Study him. Learn the weaknesses of these humans before we harvest their world." 2 guards grabbed June's arms. He didn't resist. "Not yet." "You're making a mistake," June said quietly. Tazu laughed. "The mistake was yours, sending 1 pathetic human to face the might of the Cradle Empire." As the guards dragged him toward the shuttle, June looked back at the outpost. The miners would be safe in the bunker until help arrived. He had bought them time by surrendering. Now he would learn everything he could about these Cradle. The Empire had made its first mistake. They had captured a human warrior, and not just any warrior, but one trained to survive, escape, and turn the enemy's strength against them. June allowed himself a small smile as the shuttle doors closed. June woke up strapped to a cold metal table. Bright lights hurt his eyes. The room smelled clean, like hospitals on Earth. He tested the straps. Strong, but not tight enough to cut off blood flow. "Professional work." "The subject is awake," said a voice. June turned his head. A female cradle stood nearby. She was smaller than the soldiers, with lighter purple scales and four-fingered hands that moved quickly over a screen. Her lab coat marked her as some kind of scientist. "I am Chief Scientist Hannah," she said. "Do not be alarmed. I am studying you." "Studying me for what?" June asked calmly. "To understand human weaknesses," Hannah replied honestly. "The Empire will soon take your world. We need data." June nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "And what have you learned so far?" Hannah seemed surprised by his calm. "Most species panicked when captured." "Interesting findings," she said, moving closer. "Your muscle density is higher than expected. Bone structure more solid than our scan suggested." She tapped her screen. "And your heart rate has barely changed since you woke up in enemy hands." "Professional habit," Jun said simply. Hannah's vertical pupils widened. "You are a warrior." "Was," Jun corrected. "Now I'm just security." The door hissed open. A large cradle in decorated armor strode in. His scales were darker, almost black. A long scar ran down one side of his face. "This is the human?" he asked, voice deep and rough. "Doesn't look like much." "Fleet Commander Da," Hannah said with a small bow. "I was just explaining my findings." "Save the details," Da growled. "Just tell me how hard they'll be to conquer." Hannah hesitated. "Based on initial scans, humans appear stronger than their size suggests. This one shows unusual stress response patterns." "Meaning?" Da demanded. "Where most species panic under threat, his body prepares for action," Hannah explained. "I would advise caution when." Da laughed, cutting her off. "Look at him. Soft skin, no claws, no natural armor." He leaned close to Jun's face. "Your kind will serve the Empire well in the labor camps." Jun said nothing, but his eyes never left Da's. The commander's confident smile faltered for just a moment. "Continue your tests," Da ordered Hannah. "I want a full report before we reach the human colony." After Da left, Hannah studied Jun with new interest. "You didn't flinch. Most beings fear Commander Da." "Should I?" Jun asked. "He has destroyed 12 species who resisted the Empire," Hannah said. Jun nodded. "Good to know." Throughout the day, Hannah ran tests. She measured Jun's strength, his reflexes, his pain tolerance. Each result seemed to surprise her more. "You endured that stimulus much longer than expected," she noted after one particularly painful test. "Special Forces training," Jun explained. "Pain is just information." "Special Forces?" Hannah asked. "Soldiers trained for the hardest missions," Jun said, watching her reaction carefully. "Survival, infiltration, escape." Hannah's fingers paused over her screen. "I see." She lowered her voice. "Commander Da underestimates your kind." "Most people do," Jun said. That night, left alone in a cell, Jun began his real work. The cradle had removed his restraints, confident in their security systems. They didn't search him thoroughly enough. A small metal button from his uniform was now in his hand, a specialized tool disguised as ordinary clothing. As he pretended to sleep, Jun's trained eyes had counted guards, noted camera positions, and found 3 possible escape routes. He had memorized the ship's layout from screens he glimpsed in the lab. The cradle thought they were assessing him. In truth, he was assessing them. Tomorrow, Hannah would continue her tests. She was starting to understand the truth about humans. Commander Da was not. And that would be the Empire's second mistake. Jun's moment came during a routine cell transfer. 3 days of tests had given him everything he needed. Ship layout, guard rotations, and the cradle's biggest weakness, their confidence. 2 guards marched him down a long corridor. Their clawed hands gripped energy weapons, but they held them loosely. Why worry about one weak human? "Stop here," the taller guard ordered as they reached an intersection. Jun stumbled slightly, letting his shoulder bump against the wall. The guards didn't notice him press the small metal button. actually a universal electronic key he'd modified during the night, into a nearly invisible crack in the wall panel. "Move," the second guard pushed him. June counted silently. 3, 2, 1. The lights went out. Emergency red lighting kicked in seconds later, but that was all June needed. He dropped to the floor, swept his leg in a wide arc, and knocked both guards off their feet. Before they could react, he struck each in precise spots where Hannah's tests had revealed nerve clusters. Both guards fell unconscious. June grabbed a weapon and moved quickly. He had 10 minutes before the system reset. "Security breach in Sector 7. Blared the ship's speakers. "All units respond." June slipped into a maintenance shaft he'd spotted during yesterday's transfer. The cradle, built larger than humans, rarely used these tight spaces. Perfect for him. He crawled through the dark, narrow passage, guided by the mental map he'd built. His destination, the communication hub. If the cradle planned to attack Earth, he needed to warn his people. In the command center, Commander Day roared with anger. How does one human escape 2 armed guards? He smashed his fist into a control panel. "Sir," a nervous officer reported, security systems detected movement in the maintenance tunnels. "Impossible," Day snarled. "No one can navigate those tunnels without maps. The human appears to have memorized portions of our ship layout," the officer explained. Day turned to Hannah, who stood quietly in the corner. "You said they were simple beings." "I said they should not be underestimated," Hannah corrected. "His cognitive abilities exceed our projections. He has been studying us while we studied him." "Seal all critical systems," Day ordered, "and bring me that human." June emerged from the shaft near the communications room. 2 guards stood at the door. He needed a distraction. Using the guard's weapon, he adjusted its setting to overload and tossed it down the corridor in the opposite direction. The weapon began to whine loudly. Both guards turned toward the sound. When the weapon exploded with a flash and smoke, they rushed to investigate. June slipped into the now unguarded room. Inside, he found what he needed, a quantum transmitter. The technology was different, but military communications followed similar principles across species. He worked quickly, bypassing security with tricks he'd learned in special forces. "To any Earth forces," he recorded, "this is Security Chief June from Mining Outpost Delta. The Cradle Empire plans to invade Earth. They underestimate us. Their ships are vulnerable at the reactor housing. Their ground troops have poor peripheral vision. The door slid open. 4 armed Cradle rushed in. June hit the transmit button and leaped toward the air vent he'd spotted earlier. Laser fire scorched the wall behind him as he pulled himself into the tight space. He sent a message. An officer reported to Da. "Track him. Lock down all sections," Dai ordered. "We can't, sir. He's disrupting our systems somehow." Day clenched his scaled fists. How is one human causing this much trouble? Across the room, Hannah watched the chaos with growing fascination. The Empire had conquered worlds with ease, yet one human had thrown the mighty warship into confusion. "Because," she said quietly, "you're still thinking he's prey when he's actually a predator." Meanwhile, June moved through the ship like a ghost, exactly as he'd been trained. The Empire had made its 3rd mistake. They didn't realize that humans had been fighting wars against themselves for thousands of years. And June was one of the best. June's moment came during a routine cell transfer. 3 days of tests had given him everything he needed: ship layout, guard rotations, and the Cradle's biggest weakness, their confidence. 2 guards marched him down a long corridor. Their clawed hands gripped energy weapons, but they held them loosely. Why worry about one weak human? "Stop here," the taller guard ordered as they reached an intersection. June stumbled slightly, letting his shoulder bump against the wall. The guards didn't notice him press the small metal button, actually a universal electronic key he'd modified during the night, into a nearly invisible crack in the wall panel. "Move," the second guard pushed him. June counted silently. 3, 2, 1. The lights went out. Emergency red lighting kicked in seconds later, but that was all June needed. He dropped to the floor, swept his leg in a wide arc, and knocked both guards off their feet. Before they could react, he struck each in precise spots where Hannah's tests had revealed nerve clusters. Both guards fell unconscious. June grabbed a weapon and moved quickly. He had 10 minutes before the system reset. Security breach in Sector 7. Blared the ship's speakers. All units respond. June slipped into a maintenance shaft he'd spotted during yesterday's transfer. The cradle, built larger than humans, rarely used these tight spaces. Perfect for him. He crawled through the dark, narrow passage, guided by the mental map he built. His destination, the communication hub. If the cradle planned to attack Earth, he needed to warn his people. In the command center, Commander Day roared with anger. How does one human escape 2 armed guards? He smashed his fist into a control panel. Sir, a nervous officer reported, security systems detected movement in the maintenance tunnels. Impossible, Day snarled. No one can navigate those tunnels without maps. The human appears to have memorized portions of our ship layout, the officer explained. Day turned to Hannah, who stood quietly in the corner. You said they were simple beings. I said they should not be underestimated, Hannah corrected. His cognitive abilities exceed our projections. He has been studying us while we studied him. Seal all critical systems, Day ordered, and bring me that human. June emerged from the shaft near the communications room. 2 guards stood at the door. He needed a distraction. Using the guard's weapon, he adjusted its setting to overload and tossed it down the corridor in the opposite direction. The weapon began to whine loudly. Both guards turned toward the sound. When the weapon exploded with a flash and smoke, they rushed to investigate. June slipped into the now unguarded room. Inside, he found what he needed, a quantum transmitter. The technology was different, but military communications followed similar principles across species. He worked quickly, bypassing security with tricks he'd learned in special forces. To any Earth forces, he recorded, "This is Security Chief June from Mining Outpost Delta. The Cradle Empire plans to invade Earth. They underestimate us. Their ships are vulnerable at the reactor housing. Their ground troops have poor peripheral vision. The door slid open. 4 armed Cradle rushed in. June hit the transmit button and leaped toward the air vent he'd spotted earlier. Laser fire scorched the wall behind him as he pulled himself into the tight space. He sent a message. An officer reported to Da. Track him. Lock down all sections, Dai ordered. We can't, sir. He's disrupting our systems somehow. Day clenched his scaled fists. How is one human causing this much trouble? Across the room, Hannah watched the chaos with growing fascination. The Empire had conquered worlds with ease, yet one human had thrown the mighty warship into confusion. Because, she said quietly, you're still thinking he's prey when he's actually a predator. Meanwhile, June moved through the ship like a ghost, exactly as he'd been trained. The Empire had made its 3rd mistake. They didn't realize that humans had been fighting wars against themselves for thousands of years. And June was one of the best. June moved silently through the lower decks of the massive ship. He had been free for 2 days now. The Cradle were getting desperate. Twice, he had narrowly escaped groups of soldiers. He needed a better plan. The ship was too big to keep playing this cat-and-mouse game. Eventually, they would corner him. A strange sound caught his attention. Crying. June followed the noise to a sealed door marked with symbols he couldn't read. Using a tool he had made from stolen parts, he bypassed the lock. The door slid open to reveal a prison block. Inside the cells were creatures of different shapes and sizes. None were human. None were Cradle. They all looked up in surprise. Who are you? Asked a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms. You're not Cradle. I'm June. Human. From Earth. He studied the lockpad on the cells. Who are you? Prisoners of the Empire, the blue being replied. I am Sora from Illyria. Our world refused to give the Empire our water resources, so they took some of us to make the others obey. June nodded. How many prisoners are there? 23 of us, Sora said, from 6 different worlds. A plan formed in June's mind. If I free you, will you help me send a message to the Empire? Hope filled Sora's large eyes. Free us, and we will help you burn this ship to ashes. It took June only minutes to hack the cell locks. As the doors slid open, the prisoners emerged cautiously, as if they couldn't believe they were free. We need weapons, said a small, reptilian being with bright red scales. And a plan, added another prisoner with gray skin and long arms. June smiled. I have both. But first, I need information. Sora, what do you know about this ship? Sora had worked as a technician before being captured. She knew the ship's layout better than anyone. The shuttle bay is on deck 4. It's always guarded, but there are access tunnels the maintenance droids use. Perfect, June said. And the command center. Deck 1. Heavily protected. Commander Dai is always there. June gathered the freed prisoners around him. Here's my plan. We're not just escaping. We're going to take control of a shuttle. But first, we need to send a message to the Empire. They think humans are weak. They need to learn they're wrong. Why should we help you with your revenge? Asked one prisoner. We just want to go home. Not revenge, Jum corrected. Prevention. If the Empire fears humans, they might leave Earth alone. And your worlds too. Sora placed a hand on June's shoulder. The human is right. The Empire only understands strength. Show weakness, and they never stop taking. Over the next hours, June trained the prisoners. Some learned to use makeshift weapons. Others practiced disabling ship systems. Sora taught June about cradle technology, showing him how to override door controls and communication systems. There's something you should know, Sora told June quietly while the others prepared. The cradle have a weakness. Their eyes can't see quick movements if they're made at certain angles. It's why they wear those helmets in battle. June smiled. That explains why some of my tactics worked so well. And one more thing, Sora added. Their scales are thinnest at the neck and under the arms, if you need to fight Commander Da. Good to know, June said. Alarms suddenly blared. A voice announced, all crew to battle stations. Prisoner escape in Section 12. They've discovered the empty cells, Sora said. June stood up, his face determined. Then it's time. Remember, our target is Shuttle Bay 2. Stay together. Follow my lead. As they moved out, Sora watched the human with new respect. Her people had stories about a species that would one day challenge the Empire. She had never believed them until now. The Empire had made its 5th mistake, giving their enemies a common cause. And a human leader. Commander Da's fist slammed down on the control panel. How did one human free all the prisoners? Find them. Find them now. Officers rushed to obey. Screens lit up around the command center as security cameras searched the ship. Commander, a young officer called out. We found them. Deck 3, Section 8, moving toward the shuttle bay. Day's eyes narrowed. They're trying to escape. Seal all routes to the shuttle base. Send all combat units to intercept. Hana, who stood quietly in the corner, finally spoke. Commander, this seems too obvious. The human has shown greater tactics than this. Day turned to her with fury in his eyes. Are you questioning my orders? I'm suggesting caution, Hana replied. This human thinks differently than we do. But Da had already turned away. I will lead the main force myself. This ends today. June and 3 prisoners, including Sora, moved silently through the maintenance tunnels while the rest of their group created a diversion elsewhere on the ship. They've taken the bait, June whispered, checking a small device he had modified to tap into the ship's communication system. All troops are heading to Deck 3. While we approach from Deck 5, Sora added with admiration. Your plan is working. They reached a junction that opened into a cargo loading area near Shuttle Bay 2. Only 2 guards remained at their post. Remember, June told his companions. Quick, quiet, and together. The first guard never saw them coming. June moved in the blind spot Sora had described, approaching at an angle the cradle could not track well. One strike to the neck, and the guard collapsed. The second guard turned, but too late. Sora and the others overwhelmed him before he could sound an alarm. The shuttle bay is just ahead, Sora said. Not yet, June replied. First, we need to make sure the Empire remembers this day. Day led 30 soldiers into Deck 3, weapons ready. They found 5 escaped prisoners who immediately surrendered. Where is the human? Dad demanded. The prisoners smiled but said nothing. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. The main view screens throughout the vessel changed to show the Empire's symbol. Then it glitched and was replaced by a crude drawing of a human stick figure standing on top of a fallen cradle. What is this? Day roared. His communication device crackled. Commander, the human has breached the main control systems. At that moment, doors began opening and closing randomly throughout the ship. Air circulation reversed in some sections. In others, artificial gravity weakened. He's in the central computer room, an officer reported. But that's impossible. It's the most secure area on the ship. Day realized too late what had happened. It's a distraction. Get to the shuttle bay. June and Sora worked quickly at the computer terminals in Shuttle Bay 2's control room. How much longer? June asked. Almost done, Sora replied, her 4 arms moving across multiple screens. I've downloaded the Empire's battle plans. They were targeting Earth next month. And the virus. Sora smiled. Uploaded. It will scramble their weapons targeting systems for hours. June nodded and turned to the shuttle, where the other prisoners were boarding. Time to go. The main door to the shuttle bay exploded inward. Commander Dai stood there with 5 elite soldiers. You, he snarled at June. You have caused enough trouble, human. June stepped forward, placing himself between Dai and the others. Get to the shuttle, he told Sora quietly. I'll handle this. But, she started to protest. Go, June insisted. Make sure the information reaches Earth. As Sora reluctantly retreated, June faced Dai. The commander was larger, stronger, and wearing battle armor. June had only his training and the knowledge Sora had given him about cradle weaknesses. Your tricks end here, human, Dai growled. June smiled calmly. Actually, Commander, they're just beginning. Behind Dai, the ship's emergency alarms began to blare. The Empire had made its 6th mistake. They had become so focused on catching one human that they'd left their most important systems vulnerable. The real battle was about to begin. June rolled to the side as Dai's energy blades sliced through the air where he had stood a moment before. The commander was strong but slow. June had landed 3 strikes already, targeting the weak spots in Dai's armor that Sora had revealed. Stand still and fight honorably, Dai roared in frustration. June didn't waste breath answering. He ducked another swing and countered with a quick jab to Dai's exposed neck scales. The commander hissed in pain. Behind them, Sora and the other prisoners were boarding the shuttle. Good. Even if he didn't survive this fight, they would escape with the information. Commander, a voice called from the doorway. The ship's systems are failing. We're losing weapon controls. Dai turned briefly toward the voice. June used that moment to grab a fallen weapon and fire at the ceiling above Dai. Metal and wiring crashed down, temporarily trapping the commander. You fight without honor. Dai snarled as he struggled to free himself. I fight to win, June replied simply. He backed toward the shuttle where Sora waited at the ramp. But before he could reach it, the doors to the bay slid open again. Scientist Hannah entered alone, carrying a datapad. Stop, she called. Human, you need to see this. June paused, weapon raised. It's a trick, Sora warned from the shuttle. Hannah stepped forward slowly. The Empire isn't just planning to attack Earth. They're planning to destroy it completely. She handed the data pad to June. On the screen were battle plans labeled Earth Elimination Protocol. The images showed planet-killing weapons targeting major population centers. Why show me this? June asked, not lowering his weapon. Because, Hannah hesitated. Because after studying you, I realized something. The Empire has conquered many worlds, but we've never faced a species like humans. Da had freed himself from the debris. Traitor, he shouted at Hannah. You betray the Empire. I serve knowledge, Hannah replied calmly. And knowledge tells me that attacking Earth would be a disaster for our people. June studied the plans carefully. The Empire thinks Earth will be easy to conquer. Yes, Hannah nodded. The Council believes humans are technologically advanced, but physically weak and divided. They don't understand what I've learned from you. And what is that? June asked. That humans evolved through constant warfare. That your planet's history is filled with conflict that has made your species extremely adaptable and dangerous. Hannah looked directly at June. You are not the exception. You are the rule. A slow smile spread across June's face. You're right. Don't listen to her lies. Dai shouted, stepping forward with his weapon raised. The plan was never to escape, June said quietly. Not completely. I needed access to the ship's main communication system. Hannah's eyes widened in understanding. You're going to warn Earth. I already have, June replied. But that's not enough. The Empire needs to understand what they would be facing if they attack us. He turned to Sora. Take the shuttle. Get everyone to safety. What about you? Sora asked. I still have work to do, June said. Then he turned back to Hannah. You understand what humans are. Help me show the Empire. Hannah hesitated only briefly before nodding. The command center. I can give you access. This is treason. Day roared, charging toward them. June fired his weapon, not at Da, but at the control panel beside him. The bay doors between them slammed shut, leaving Dai trapped on one side while June, Hannah, and a shuttle remained on the other. As the shuttle launched, carrying the freed prisoners to safety, June turned to Hannah. Take me to the command center. The Empire had made its seventh mistake. They had failed to realize that the human they captured wasn't just fighting for his own survival. He was fighting for his entire species. And now he would show them exactly what that meant. Alarms blared throughout the ship as Hannah led June through hidden corridors toward the command center. They moved quickly, avoiding the main hallways filled with soldiers. The command center is just ahead, Hannah whispered. But it will be heavily guarded. June nodded. I need 5 minutes at the main communication controls. Can you get me that? Hannah took a deep breath. Yes, follow my lead. They rounded a corner and came face to face with two guards. Before the guards could react, Hannah stepped forward. Emergency protocol. The human prisoner has been spotted on the lower decks. Commander Dai orders you both to report there immediately. The guards hesitated only briefly before rushing away. Hannah smiled at June. Not all battles require weapons. They entered the command center through a side entrance. Inside, officers worked frantically at control stations, trying to fix the ship's damaged systems. None noticed the new arrivals at first. Hannah pointed to a large console at the far end of the room. That's the main communication array. It can broadcast to the entire fleet. June moved toward it, but suddenly the main doors slid open. Commander Dai stormed in, his armor damaged from their earlier fight. His yellow eyes locked onto June instantly. Traitors, he roared. The entire room froze. June didn't waste time. He sprinted for the communication console. Guards moved to intercept him, but he was faster, using the fighting techniques he had perfected over years of combat training. Dai drew his energy blade. I will handle the human myself. The command center became a battleground. Officers scattered as Dai charged at June. Energy blasts from guard weapons hit walls and equipment as Jun ducked and rolled toward his target. Reaching the console, Jun began typing rapidly. He needed to send his message to the entire Cradle fleet. Behind him, he could hear Day approaching. "Hana, buy me time," he called out. Hana activated the ship's emergency protocols from a nearby station. Blast doors began closing randomly throughout the room, temporarily blocking Dai's path. "Face me, human," Dai bellowed, slashing through a metal barrier with his energy blade. Jun continued working at the console. "Just a few more seconds." "Done," he announced. But as he turned, Dai burst through the final barrier. The two faced each other in the center of the command room. Officers and guards formed a circle around them, watching in silence. "You have caused enough trouble," Dai growled, raising his blade. "Now you die." Jun stood calmly, unarmed. "Before you kill me, look at the main screen." Despite himself, Dai glanced up at the large view screen. It showed Jun's message being transmitted to every ship in the Cradle fleet. "Attention Cradle Empire," Jun's recorded voice announced. "You plan to attack Earth, believing humans will be easy to conquer. You are making a fatal mistake." The screen changed to show Earth's military history, ancient battles, modern wars, training exercises of Special Forces soldiers performing incredible feats of strength and skill. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years," the message continued. "We have mastered the art of war in ways you cannot imagine. I am just one human. Earth has millions of warriors far more skilled than me." Dai's eyes widened as he watched footage of human combat techniques, weapons, and tactical operations. "Your arrogance blinds you," Jun said, addressing Dai directly now. "You thought capturing one human would help you understand us all. Instead, you created an enemy who knows your weaknesses." Dai roared and lunged at Jun with his blade. Jun sidestepped the attack with practiced ease. As Dai stumbled past, Jun struck the weak point at the back of his neck. The commander crashed to the floor, his weapon sliding away. Before Dai could rise, Jun placed his foot on the commander's throat, not pressing down, but making his position clear. "I could kill you," Jun said quietly. "But I won't, because humans understand something the Cradle have forgotten." "What's that?" Dai gasped. "Sometimes," Jun replied, "mercy sends a stronger message than death." The command center was silent as everyone watched the unthinkable, a human warrior standing victorious over the mighty Commander Dai. The Empire had made its 8th mistake. They had given one human warrior the perfect stage to demonstrate why Earth should never be attacked. 1 month later, Jun stood before the Earth Defense Council. Military leaders from around the world sat at a long table, their faces serious as they watched footage from the Cradle ship. "And after you defeated Commander Dai, what happened?" asked General Park, the head of the council. "The Imperial Council contacted the ship," Jun explained. "They had received my broadcast. They wanted to speak with me directly." On the screen behind him, the recording showed the massive view screen in the Cradle command center. 7 elderly Cradle in elaborate robes looked down at Jun with a mixture of anger and curiosity. "Human," the center figure had said, "you have caused great damage to our ship and our pride. Why should we not destroy your world for this insult?" The recording showed Jun standing tall. "Because you would lose. You thought one human would be easy to capture and control. You were wrong. Earth has billions of us, many far more dangerous than me." The council members had whispered among themselves before the leader spoke again. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds. What makes humans different?" "Most species evolved to survive their environment," Jun had answered. "Humans evolved to survive each other. Our entire history is warfare. Our bodies and minds are designed for combat in ways you cannot understand." The council fell silent at this. "I offer you a choice," Jun continued in the recording. "Leave Earth and human territories alone, and we will not seek revenge for your attacks on our outpost. Or come to Earth and learn why the Empire's greatest mistake was messing with a human warrior." The video ended. The Earth Defense Council room was quiet. The Cradle Imperial Council agreed to my terms, Jun said, breaking the silence. They've signed a treaty recognizing Earth space as off-limits to the Empire. General Park nodded slowly. One man prevented an interstellar war. Impressive. Not prevented, Jun corrected. Postponed. The Cradle respects strength. We need to be ready if they ever decide to test us again. At the same time, on the Cradle Imperial homeworld, scientist Hannah stood before the same council. She had been summoned to explain her role in the events on the ship. You betrayed Commander Da, one council member accused. I served the Empire by preventing a costly mistake, Hannah replied calmly. After studying the human, I concluded that attacking Earth would result in significant losses for our forces. Because of one human, another council member asked in disbelief. Hannah activated a holo display showing her research. This human was not special among his kind. Their planet has endured over 15,000 wars in their recorded history. They have developed combat tactics we have never imagined. Their bodies can endure extreme conditions. Their minds can create weapons from ordinary objects. She paused to let this sink in. Most importantly, they never stop fighting. Even when defeated, they continue to resist. The council leader leaned forward. What do you recommend? Establish peaceful trade with humans instead of trying to conquer them, Hannah said. I believe they could become valuable allies rather than dangerous enemies. After much debate, the council agreed. Hannah was appointed as the first ambassador to Earth, tasked with building relations with these strange, dangerous humans. Back on Earth, Jun walked along a beach near his new home. After years of fighting, he had found peace, at least for now. His communication device beeped. A message from the mining outpost he had saved. They had erected a monument in his honor. The message included a photo of the plaque, which read, "One human stood against an empire and showed them why some worlds should be left alone." Jun smiled. The Cradle ships now gave Earth's solar system a wide berth. Reports from space showed that the Empire had added a new rule to their conquest protocols. Evaluate human presence before engagement. The Empire's greatest mistake shall not be repeated. As the sun set over the ocean, Jun took a deep breath of Earth air. His home was safe. And somewhere out in the stars, an entire empire feared the species they had once thought weak. All because they made the mistake of messing with a human warrior.